what you might need for the practice today is a strap. And if you don't have one, or you don't feel like getting up and going to get one, you can do everything also without it. And if you don't have a strap, it could be a shawl, a belt, bathrobe belt. So we'll be taking the arms up, so it needs to be wide enough so that you can take the arms up and over. But and I'll place that at the very top of my mat, so we'll use it while we're on the belly to do some shoulder strengthening and shoulder mobility work from there. And we're going to start deceptively slow on the back, and then it'll kind of build up a bit over the course of the hour. And the target is both shoulders and hips, and some active movement for the shoulders and the hips. But what I want to start with is a very simple shoulder release that you could actually do anywhere. So we're simply going to hug the shoulders up, so you can sit in any way you want. We're going to hug the shoulders up, and when they come to their maximum height, also squeezing them a bit. So you find a contraction, taking a breath, and then see how slowly can you release. So I'm going to be, maybe a count of 10 on this first one, and then the second one will try to be even slower. I closed my eyes for a moment, so I really kind of want to feel that. So these slow releases, they also take quite a lot of presence. And see that when you start to feel the shoulders back in the normal, like the last 10%, keep slowing it down. So as slow as you can. And I'll do one more, so we might be at different pace. I've found it quite hard to slow down enough. So don't go at my speed, so go at your own. So I'll do one more squeeze. And I mean, ideally, maybe even a count to 20 as you lower, and paying attention. So there's a little bit of contraction still in the muscles as they are lowering. So there's a bit of like a resistance of the gravity as the shoulders move down. And how slow can I make it? And again, notice how much presence it takes to kind of move this slow and to be in that movement and feel into that release. Maybe you're still moving, I'm still moving, I'm in my last 10%, so to speak. Again, if you're still moving downwards, that's great. If you already shoulders are down, just take a breath in, take a breath out, and notice. And then we'll try a similar thing for a lower back release. So we've done those pelvic tilts very often in class, and I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time. So once you've kind of done and you've felt into your shoulders, let yourself come down onto the mat on your back. We're going to do a thing where at one point, we're going to roll a little bit off the mat to one side and the other side. So if you can clear up some space, you can roll onto your floor, that's fine, but just making sure there's space on either side of the mat. That'll come down the track. And then come and lie onto your back. And take a moment to just have your legs straight for just a couple of breaths to feel into your lower back. So just this moment of sensing, legs straight, feeling, the shoulders are there, dropping, taking a breath in, taking a breath out. And then the movement pelvic tilt that we'll be doing that with the feet on the mat. So after a couple of breaths, just noticing, I'm going to step the feet onto the mat. And so, as I said, we'll do it a little bit differently. So rather than doing the arching and flattening, we'll just start by doing the arching part and coming back to neutral. So with your feet on the mat, just notice right now, there's a little bit of a gap between the mat and the lower back, and feeling that neutral position. There should be a little bit of an arch there. And then we start to emphasize that arch. So you're going to go the pelvic tilt in a way that the lower back arches away from the ground. The front of the body opens and lengthens. And then slowly but coming back to neutral. So not coming to press the lower back onto the mat, but coming back to neutral. And go a couple of times with the breathing rhythm of inhaling and letting the lower back arch away from the ground. And then exhaling, coming back to neutral. Maybe one or two like this, where you go with your breathing rhythm, and then we'll do a slow one. Just feeling that one part of that arch and flatten sequence. Feel your tailbone pressing onto the ground, feel your sacrum. And then next time when you're in the neutral, let's go into the arch on the inhale, but then you start to release for the count of 10. So taking a long time to come back to neutral, and take extra breaths there. So that doesn't have to be a really long exhale. So feel the lower back, the muscles in your lower back, feel them contracting as you're in that arched position. When the front lengthens, remember the back is shortening. And then you're slowly releasing. So some of that contraction stays in the lower back. See how much you can slow it down. How soft can you be? Keep this as you find your way back to neutral. And sometimes moving this slow can be somewhat irritating. So notice any responses that arise. And I'll do one more, and I'm going to try to slow it down even more, coming back to the neutral for the count of 20. It doesn't have to be exact, but what I'm just trying to emphasize, it's a lot slower than maybe our kind of mental pace would like it to be. And so there's still a bit of resistance as I release that contraction from the muscles of the lower back. And I find it quite hard to move that slow. And that's okay. And then once you're back in the neutral, just taking a breath in, a breath out. Again, if you are really moving slow and you're still in that movement, don't rush it. And then after a little break, I'm going to do the flattening part. So at first, I'm going to press the lower back onto the mat. And now notice how the front contracts, right? The belly, the muscles deep in the gut are contracting. And then coming back to neutral. So not into the arch, but back into a neutral back. And then I'll do a couple of those with my breathing rhythm. So I'm exhaling and pressing the lower back onto the mat. And inhale, coming back to neutral, which means that I'm not overly arching, but there's a little bit of a arch in the lower back away from the ground. So go a couple of times with the breathing rhythm. Exhale and really feel that contraction through the front. And then the release of that contraction as you're moving back towards the neutral. And then if you're up for it, let's do 2 rounds where we do it really slowly. So pressing down onto the back, the lower back flattens onto the ground. And then see if you can really slow down the release, paying attention as the contraction through the front body musculature softens and releases and takes you back to the neutral. And I'll go one more time. So similarly, like with the shoulders, this is a really good way to release tension, especially also if there's chronic tension in the lower back. And again, if you're still journeying, don't rush it. I'm going to meet you back in the neutral. And then I'll do 2 or 3 rounds, depending again on your pace, where I arch the back and on the inhale. And then I come back to the neutral on the exhale. I'll take an extra breath in the neutral. And then I use my exhale to flatten the lower back onto the ground. And then the inhale to come back to the neutral. So this is how it's different to how we usually do it. I'm really finding that neutral, taking that extra breath out, and then going into the arch part of the cycle on the inhale. Back to the neutral on the exhale, and then taking an extra breath in there. And using the exhale to flatten. And just this one more round of this. And then once you're done, I'm going to straighten the legs one more time to just feel into that lower back area, to take a couple of breaths. Knowing that we will change the pace. We will change the pace. All right, so now I want to bring the focus into the upper back for a moment. So I'll step the feet back onto the mat. I'll keep them a bit wider than the hips. We're going to include the legs in a moment, but I'll start with just the upper back. And again, just a little bit of movement to release the thoracic spine and the shoulders. So I'm going to hold on to each elbow. So right hand on the left elbow, left hand on the right elbow. And the elbows are going to point up towards the ceiling. So my forearms is like a box, like a square in front of me. And I'm going to start to draw the elbows over to the right, letting my head slightly drift over to the left. And then hands come back, the forearms come back to the center, and then over to the left. And move like this a couple of times. The head is not going to turn overly much, but just kind of feel that the neck is not tight. And as my arms move to the right, I feel the pull of the left shoulder blade off the mat. As my elbows move to the left, I feel the pull of the right shoulder blade off the mat. And then if you wish, you could add the legs, the windshield wiper movement in the legs. So as the elbows move to the left, the knees start to drop to the right. Remember, the head is kind of slightly moving to the right as well. And then everything comes back to the center. And then as the arms move to the right, the knees drop to the left. And just notice how your breathing is. I find this can be done both, moving into on the exhale, coming back on the inhale, or moving into the shape on the inhale, coming back on the exhale. So just notice how your breath most comfortably wants to move. So you could be still doing just the arms or arms and legs. Nice. I'll go one more time. Perfect. And then when you have your knees over on the left side, then keep them there and release the arms. So take the arms out from the shoulders and take your right arm a little bit higher up. Then press the inner blade of your right foot onto the mat and lengthen your right knee towards the back of the mat, so away from the hip, and reach the right fingertips the opposite direction, so a psoas stretch, so feeling into the front of that right hip. Take a breath in, and then on the exhale, let the knees come back to the center, pointing up towards the ceiling. Keep the right arm where it is and move into it 2 more times. So let the knees drop to the left. Lengthen the right knee away from the head, from the hip. So you feel your pelvis kind of turning and rotating a bit more. Reach the right fingertips the opposite direction. Take a breath in at the top. And then use your exhale to rock back onto your back. So knees come up, pelvis comes onto the ground fully. And go 1 more time at your own pace. So it's just feeling into the front, into the side body, breath and reach, and then back to the center. And the next time when the knees are back up, you could bring the right arm just down out from the shoulder, and then keep moving the right knee. So left knee stays exactly as it is, feet stay exactly as they are. Right knee is going to drop in towards the midline, so coming into that internal rotation. And the knee comes up towards the ceiling, and then let that knee drop out to the right, keeping the left as is, so it might not be a big movement. And move slowly and feel into that right hip. So even though it's the knee moving, I'm going to feel into slowly, softly gauging into the range of this movement in my right hip. Just a couple of more times. The knee dropping in. If the width doesn't work, then feel free to change where exactly that right foot is. And I'll go 1 more time. And then as my right knee starts to drop over to the right the next time, I'm going to let both knees drop to the right, and then taking the left arm up. So same thing for the opposite side. Inner blade, the big toe side of the left foot, starts to press onto the ground. The left knee reaches away from the left hip. And you feel a stretch through the front, through the side. The pelvis rotates a little bit. Take a breath in, reach the left fingertips the opposite direction. And then exhale, let everything drop. Knees come back up towards the ceiling so the pelvis drops. And go 2 more times on your own. So find that reach, that pressing down, the tilting of the pelvis, the breath coming in, and then the returning back to the center. I'll go 1 more time. Back to the center, then bringing the left arm back down, keeping everything as is, the legs quite wide, feet away from each other, letting that left knee start to drop in towards the midline, lift back up, and then dropping away from the midline. So kind of into that butterfly position, but since your feet are quite wide, the knee might not go very far. And go a few more times, just really delicately feeling into that hip area. Don't force anything as always, just moving within that zone where you feel that you're not forcing, you're not pushing. But paying attention, right? Let's go 1 more time. And the next time when the knee is up, come and straighten both legs. I wanted to do a little bit of a back bend here, and so if you just want to flop onto your belly, you could, but I'm going to do that X roll. So this is where we're going to get off the mat a little bit. So I'm going to take my left arm up, and I'm going to initiate the movement with the right leg lifting up off the mat and starting to cross over the left leg. That movement of crossing over starts to lift my right bum and then starts to roll me over onto my belly. So I've come onto my carpet. I'm going to walk up onto my forearms for a moment. And then actually I'm going to come back onto the belly. I want to do the lower body first. So resting the forehead onto your forearms, tucking your toes under, and then reaching the heels away from, again, heels towards the back of the mat, lifting the thighs and the knees off the mat so you feel activation through the back line, the back of the legs. Take a breath in, take a breath out. And then slowly start to press your forearms down and lifting your upper body any amount. Could be a little. Feel into your lower back. I'm still keeping that engagement in the legs. So that squeeze of the lower back. The whole back body now contracting, right? Take a breath in. Take a slow breath out. And again, if it doesn't work, feel free to have the tops of the feet on the mat. And then slowly begin to lower down onto the belly. And then you're going to have your left arm straight. You're going to lift your right leg again. So we're going to do the X roll back. So the right leg lifts and then starts to reach over that left leg again. That movement is going to flop you onto your back. Take a breath here, and then we'll do the same roll to the opposite side. So I'm going to take my right arm up. The left leg is going to lift. It starts to cross over the right leg, and that movement is going to roll me over onto my belly. I'm going to tuck my toes under one more time. So the same thing. I'm going to lift the thighs. Reach back through the heels, feel the activation in the lower body. And then slowly, any amount of lift. So your forearms, adjust where your elbows are. And then lifting, feeling that lower back, that activation through the back line. Take a breath in. Take a slow breath out. One more. Nice. And then let's slowly lower. Reach the right hand is now straight and forward because we're going to roll over that right shoulder. Left leg again is the one that lifts. Starts to cross over the right and then reaching through the left leg, letting that reaching pull you onto your back, roll you onto your back. And then hugging both knees in. Do a little rolling from side to side. So right hand, left hand on the left knee. Let the right knee pull you over to the right side. So you're going to curl over to the right. Then the left knee starts to lift and rolls you over to the left. And you go like this a couple of times from side to side. And then choosing the side where you want to come up. So roll to that side and then let that momentum bring you up. Hello. We're going to come up through the squat. So take your time. Any props that you need in the squat. I'm going to just adjust my microphone. Take a moment in the squatting pose, as we often do. Feel into the hips there. Either holding it more steady or letting your hips wiggle a bit. And then when you're ready, from the squat to downward facing dog. So you're going to place your palms down, lift your hips up, and then step the legs back to the back of the mat. Let the dog wiggle if it wants to. If you need to feel into the legs and shoulders, bending the knees, straightening the knees. And again, if downward facing dog feels like too much too soon, you could be wiggling and moving in on all fours in cat and cow. I'm going to give it a couple of more breaths. And then I'll take for a couple of breaths, I'll walk my hands back to the feet so that I can feel more into the back body. So into that forward fold, soft knees, letting the head tangle. I like to walk my hands over to the left while straightening the right knee. So you could join me in this as a way to feel into the back body. Couple of breaths there. And then swapping, so when the right knee softens, the hands move over to the right, and then the left knee straightens. Just another breath in. And then back through the center. Just one more little wiggle of the tail. And then beginning to walk back into downward facing dog. So hands back forward, pressing the palms down, reaching the hips up. And then I'm going to ground through the left foot. You could even step it a little bit more to the midline if you want. I'm going to bring the right leg up and either keeping that leg straight or for a couple of breaths opening the right hip on top of the left hip and then bending into the right knee, letting the right heel drop towards the left buttock. If that doesn't feel good in the lower back, stay more with the squared hips and reaching back through the right leg, rounding through the arms. Maybe 1 or 2 more breaths. If you have your hip open, then first straighten the leg, square the hips, and slowly begin to bring your right foot to the right side of the mat. So I'm walking my right hand a little bit out of the way. Hands are on the inside. You can be on knuckles, on your fingertips. I'm going to reach back through the left heel and forward, kind of through my chest and the hips lower a little bit. And then I'm going to hug the heel kind of towards the left thigh bone, in towards the socket. Right foot presses down, and I'm going to round away from the ground so everything comes towards the midline. Then alternate between the two. Let the hips lower, reach back through the heel, forward through the heart. And then press down through the front foot, hug the the thigh bone into its socket and round the back. I'll go one more time. So again, you can move at your own pace through this pulse. And then next time when I go through that more centered place, I'm going to have the left hand ground onto the ground, into the ground, and right hand go up into a twist. Now I'm going to send the right hand forward towards the top, and at the same time I'm going to round away from the ground. Same action, pressing the right heel down. And then I'm just going to send the right hand towards the back of the mat, and I'm going to lower the hip. So same action, pressing back through the heel. So move now in the twist, similar action. Front foot presses down, rounding, but the rounding now comes more into the side body. And then the arm reaches back and the hips lower. At your own pace, one more time. You can even let the head hang. You can let the arm hang rather than reaching when you do the arching. And then next time when the arm arches forward, I'm going to let it come onto the mat on the inside and then walking halfway over towards the back foot, so you're in that wide-legged stance. I'll turn around, you stay as you are. Move through the hip glide, so bend into the back knee and then bend into the front knee, into the left knee and right knee, and find your way of gliding here. So you could keep your fingertips on the ground, you could lift them off the ground, so more of your weight and activation is needed through the legs and the hips. And just explore a couple of more rounds from side to side. And then you could take a little pause at the center in a wide-legged forward fold. So grounding through the feet, letting the head, the ground of the head, it's not on the mat, but it's reaching downwards, head heavy. Taking a couple of breaths here. Beautiful. And then walk around the front foot, the right foot, step back to downward facing dog. Breath in, breath out in downward facing dog. And then through the plank, my plank exploration today would be to walk the feet a tiny bit wider, Make sure you're not collapsing through the midline. The hips can even be lifted a little bit. And then letting the heels move and pivot over to the right, back up towards the ceiling, and over to the left. But the whole time I'm kind of hugging a bit away from the ground. Just a couple of more times, maybe one more time to each side. And then next time when the heels are up towards the ceiling, lower the knees. Take a slow journey down onto the ground. And then hopefully your strap is there. If you don't have a strap, then as I said, you could do all of the things also just without it. And so first I'm going to have the strap quite wide. I'm going to hold it in both hands. And the first movement is to pull lightly on the strap, but I'm going to press the arms down and just lift my chest off the ground. So it's a back bend like a locust with the arms forward, slightly pressing the arms down. So for this one, you don't really need the strap. And then exhale as I lower. I'm going to keep my forehead on the ground as I start to pull on the strap, now actively as if I want to break it apart, and then starting to slowly lift the arms up, however high they come. So if you don't have a strap, maybe you just make a fist and you lift your arms. But if you have something, then pull on it and lift it. And then slowly keep pulling it as you lower. Then press down onto the ground and lift the upper back. And we'll move like this a couple of more times. So lowering out of the back bend. And then taking your arms into that active extension as you keep pulling on the strap the whole time you're lifting and the whole time you're lowering. So you have activation through that range of motion. Once the arms are down, you're going to press the hands down and lift the chest. So extension for the spine, for the upper back. And let's go 2 more times. It's quite active for the shoulders, I find. I'll go 1 more. And next time when the hands are down, keep the strap there, but simply bring the hands under the shoulders and then find your cobra pose. Feel into the upper back, feel into the shoulders. Take a breath in, take a breath out, and then slowly returning to downward facing dog. If you need a little child's pose before that, feel free to take the buttocks back towards the heels before they reach up towards the ceiling. And then maybe you sense in downward facing dog that action, the result of that action in the shoulders. Maybe feels a little bit more space in the shoulders. And then we're getting ready for the opposite side. So I'm going to have the right foot ground. Maybe it steps even a little bit more towards the midline as the left leg reaches back behind. And either keeping the hip square or opening the left hip on top of the right, bending into the left knee, letting the left heel collapse towards the right buttock. Taking a couple of breaths here. Both palms rooting down. And then straightening through the knee, squaring the hip, and starting to slowly step the right foot towards the right side, left foot towards the left side of the mat. I'm on my fingertips or on your knuckles. You could also use blocks. I'm going to reach the right heel back and chest forward and the hips lower a bit. front heel presses down, back heel hugs in, back thigh bone hugs in, everything hugs towards the midline, and I round the back. Even chin comes to chest. Slowly between the two, heel back, hips lower, chest lifts a little bit. That could be an inhale. And then there's this hugging in and rounding of the back. And then one more like this. Now next time I move through kind of that central position, I'm going to ground the right hand, maybe a little bit out from that right shoulder, finding a place where that shoulder feels supported. And the left hand comes up into a twist. As the left hand starts to reach forward, I'm going to lift, press the front heel down, lift away from the ground. So there's this arching movement. And then as the arm rotates towards the back, I'm going to let the hips drop. And move like this 2 more times. Arching, feeling the side body. And then letting the hips get heavier as the arm circles. Okay, 1 more time. Strong legs. And next time when the left arm comes up and forward, I let it come down inside that left foot and then travel halfway over, again into our wide-legged stance. Coming through that hip glide, so a couple of times, and you could definitely stay with this. Hands down on the mat. Or a bit more dynamic variation is as I go over to the right, I'm going to press down onto the ground and rise, and then bend into the left. And then glide over to the right, press down through the right. So I do like this circle. Arms could also go through a circle if you wish, but you don't have to. And then I'm going to change. So next time when I'm over at the left side, I'm going to press down through the left and rise through the left and descend down through the right. Then glide over to the left with the hips low, press down through the left to lift, and then lower through the right. And then find your momentum, quite strong for the legs. Beautiful. And again, we could take a little pause moment in a wide-legged forward fold. If you enjoy, you could interlock the hands behind the back if you want a shoulder stretch here, if you want to add that. Otherwise, just keeping the hands on the ground in a couple of more breaths. Beautiful. If your hands are interlocked, begin to release them. Walk the hands under your shoulders and around your left foot. Step back to downward facing dog. Take a couple of breaths here. And then as we move into the plank pose, you could stay with that same variation that we did. So heels dropping over to the right. Heels dropping over to the left. You could add to it when heels drop to the right hand presses down, the left hand lifts up and makes a circle. So you're kind of in a side plank. And then as the left hand comes down, heels pivot back up and roll over to the left while the right hand makes a circle. So one more round, either just staying with the legs or adding the circling of the top arm. And then next time when you're at the center, lower the knees. Take a slow journey down onto the belly. Release everything onto the ground. Reach for your strap. The beginning of the movement will be the same as we did, and we add just a little bit to it. So I'm going to hold the strap. I'm going to press the palms, the hands down, and just lift the upper back. So that was what we did last round. I release this back bend, and I begin to lift the arms. I keep pulling on the strap, and I start to bend the elbows, and I'm going to draw the strap down kind of along my back body, upper back. And then reaching the arms, the elbows back straight, still pulling on the strap the whole time as I slowly lower. When the arm's on the ground, I press the hands onto the ground, just lifting again the upper back. Slowly lowering down, and you could simply stay with them. Arms lifting, or add the bending of the elbows the whole time I'm pulling on the strap. Move slowly. No need to overdo it. Let's go one more round if you're with me. If you need a break, take a break. And next time when the hands are down, release the strap. Take the hands under the shoulders. Take your time again. If you need a little break, hang out here for a bit. Try your cobra or upward facing dog now with that extra mobility that we created in the shoulders and in the upper back. So you could come to cobra, or you could lift the hips off and be an upward facing dog. And then take one more downward facing dog or come to child's pose. If you want to add a vinyasa here, you could, from downward facing dog, you could come to plank, you could lower, coming into upward facing dog or cobra, or you could be resting in child's pose. So a couple of breaths. And then we'll meet by sitting on our heels. So if you are in downward facing dog, lower your knees. If you're in child's pose, sit up onto your heels. So we're coming close to our finale. So I'm going to do active eagle pose. And we're going to do just the arms first. So usually how we do it is we cross the arms, we wrap them. So now what I'm asking you to do is come to cross the left elbow over the right elbow, but keep them hovering, keep it active. So I keep crossing. So you feel into the action in the shoulders, keep it active, and then release. Little circling, and then going the opposite, so left over right. And any amount, if the elbows don't cross, any amount, you could have even your forearms crossed. They come towards the midline. You feel this upper back broadening away. It's definitely active in my shoulders. And release. Let's do one more time, just the arms, then the legs. So hugging, so there's a hugging action towards the midline. And release, and then go right over left. Hugging in, hugging in, hugging in, keeping it active, and release. Now let's come to forward fold. So we slowly travel up to standing. So I'm tucking the toes under, pressing the hips up, coming into an Uttanasana. Let's take a halfway lift up on the inhale. Slow bow forward on the exhale, chin to chest. And then soften the knees, press down onto your feet to rise all the way up. The arms could just float up for a moment, and then exhale, exhale, exhale. Coming to standing. All right. So active eagle legs would look something like this. I'm going to balance on my right leg. I'm going to lift that left leg up and I'm going to cross it over, keeping it hovering and hugging. The thighs can touch, then they hug against each other. And then coming back out. Let's do the opposite side. So let's go a couple of times like this, hugging in, squatting down a little bit, bending into the standing knee, hugging it in, coming out. And then what I like to add to here is, yes, we do the eagle hugging. So left crossing over. But then I'll add to it that little curtsy squat. So option is the left leg circles back. You could put the toes down and you could just do a little squat, or you could have the top of the foot down and lower, see how far down you can lower and rise. So it comes over and across and hugs. It crosses through the back and does either a little curtsy or a deeper curtsy. And man, that right bum is working. All right, what if we had, for the last one, we add the arms. So as the left leg goes over, the left hand goes under. Yeah, I know, it's a brain freeze moment. And then as the hand goes back, I'm just going to have the left elbow move towards the right knee. One last one. Left hand under. Left elbow towards the knee. Ooh la la. And we're back standing. Ah. Release, release, release. I'm doing a little shake. Really shake the bum. Feel the bum all fluttery. And then for the opposite side. Okay, so we've practiced, so standing on the left, we've done this part, hugging it across. But then play with, where's your curtsy? Either just a little one, or really kind of lowering as far down and then coming back up using your left glute. Crossing over. And all of that wobbling, really good. Recalibrating, messaging from the body to brain. And then if you want to add the arms, when the right crosses, the right hand goes under and they hug. When you go into that curtsy, right elbow towards the left knee. Maybe one more I have in me. Perfect. Whew. And then again, one more little wiggle. And then we'll take a forward fold, rising up, starting to wind down. And either you could do the same that we did, bending into the right knee as you walk the hands over to the right. You could also take your left leg behind that right leg, so cross it behind, so the little toes are next to each other. There can be a gap, they don't have to be exactly touching. So either variation, you don't have to cross the leg if that doesn't feel good. Couple of breaths. And then through the center, bringing the hands over to the left while you bending into the left knee, the right knee is straight. And either keep your legs parallel or take that right leg, cross it behind the left leg. One more breath. And then back through the center. If your strap is far away, I walk my hands a little bit more towards the strap so it's with me. I walk the feet a bit backwards so that I can come and lower the knees down. Just for a moment, sitting up onto my heels with the toe squat. I'll just give it a moment here. And then we're going to do one last thing for the arms, the kind of the Garudasana, no, these were Garudasana, Gomukhasana arms. So you could be sitting back on the heels when we do that, or sitting on a block, or you could come to a shoelace pose or gomukhasana. So you could sit over onto your right hip and bring the left knee on top. But I want you to be in a space where you can focus on the shoulders. So if this position in the legs is going to get you all crooked and you can't get to the shoulders, then I'd rather that you sit on the heels or find a position where you can focus onto your shoulders. And the strap is here, and if you don't have one, again, you can do everything. I'll just keep it here for a moment, and I'll do it without the strap first. Well, draw the arms out to the sides, and a couple of times I roll them in, and I roll them out. So when you look at your thumbs, you see your thumbs rolling down towards the ground, and keep rolling them how far they can go. And then they roll up towards the ceiling and keep rolling them in that direction, however far they can go. And then see if you can do the roll so the arms are going to do the opposite thing. So when one thumb is rolling down, the other thumb is rolling up. And see if you can do that. A couple of rounds. Nice. And so your left knee is on top if you're sitting in Gomukhasana. So come to a place where your right arm is rolling up and the left arm is rolling down. Right arm is rolling up, left arm is rolling down. Keep that rolling action. Start to draw the right arm up, the left hand down, and then bend into the elbows and try to keep the arms in that rolling action and hovering away from the body. And then come back to the center. Do it one more time. Right hand rolls up, left hand rolls down, and then they start to move right hand up, left hand down, and then they come back behind you and you keep them hovering, just like we did with the Garuda arms. And then release. And now if you do have a strap, take the strap behind you, or take the strap into the top hand, let's say. Let it be, and hold it with the bottom hand. And keep it quite wide, so you don't have to walk the hands close to each other. And now keep pulling on the strap. So keep pulling the left hand down and the right hand up. So you're pulling on the strap, and then move the hands as much as you can away from the back. Keep pulling on the strap. And then you could move the hands towards the body, keep pulling on the strap. Move the hands away from the body. You could also pull a little bit upwards through the right hand and then downwards through the left hand, but the whole time keep the pull on the strap. And then keep your lower ribs coming in so that this action is not here. You keep the lower ribs in. Do a couple of more. Active through the whole range. And then begin to release. Let the arms settle. If you're in your shoelace pose, you could even fold forward for a couple of breaths if you want. And if you're in any other seat, similarly, just let yourself feel into the shoulders for a bit. And then if you were in the Gomukhasana, shoelace we call it in Yin, then switch the legs around. So it might be that you just lean back and you have your right knee on top. And if you're sitting in any other seat, you can just keep sitting. All right, arms go side, same thing. So at first, let's do, again, rewiring. So repeating, so both arms doing the same thing. You could also try different diagonals, so bring them a little bit more forward. Give them this rolling here. And then draw them back to the sides and try to do the opposite. So when the right is rolling down, the left is rolling up. Feel into that ringing action in the shoulders. And then pause where the left is rolling open and the right is rolling down. Keep that action. So right internal, external in the left, and then start to bring the left up, right down while bending into the elbows. Keep here also the lower ribs in. The arms hover a little bit away from your body. And then bring them back. Open both arms up, maybe even soften the elbows a little bit. And do that one more time. So roll the right open, sorry, left open, right down, and then reach down and up. Bend through the elbows. Feel the that the shoulders, shoulder blades, or the muscles around the shoulder blades active. And then release. And again, if you didn't have a strap, you just keep doing that. If you have a strap, use that between the hands. So they pull on the strap, lifting that elbow up. So first just pulling on the strap, lower ribs in, pulling on the strap, and then moving the strap, even if it's just a millimeter away from the back body. Keep pulling on the strap, bringing it closer, maybe even touching the body. Keep pulling on the strap, moving it away, and then maybe pulling up through the left, and then a little bit down through the right, all the while pulling on the strap. Couple of more explorations on your own. Need to keep my jaw relaxed here. Perfect. And then again, either stay seated, just feel the shoulders. If you're in the gomukhasana and you want to come and fold forward, if that's appropriate, that works for you, then do that. Soft belly breath in. Slow release out, just noticing sensation around the shoulders. If you're in gomukhasana, also of course sensation around the hips. Beautifully done. Slowly we rise. If again your legs are tied up, release them, bring them to the front, give them a little tap, and then slowly onto the back again. We're almost done. So if you need anything for Shavasana, have it handy. As I roll on the back, I'll just hug the knees in and I'll do just a couple of more rolls from side to side, but you could also just take a twist. You could roll your knees over to the left and reach the right hand out to the right for a couple of breaths. I'm just such a fan of rolling. I'm just going to roll a little bit from side to side. Or anything else that you feel the body might need. That feels like a good way to round up this session. And then at one point starting to find your stillness. So I will keep space here for about 4 minutes or so for the rest. So if you want more, then please take more time here. Let there be a whole body exhale as you're settling. Let yourself feel the effects of some parts of the practice were quite active, so there might be some lingering sensations. Encouraging a natural, gentle, light breath. No forcing. Let your face soften. Grounding downwards through the back body. These roots moving down and wide and deep into the ground. Then soft through the front body as you relax the belly more and more. Soft, soft, soft. Easeful. Gentle movement in the ribs. And as always, I encourage you to stay longer if you feel that it was too brief. And if you know that this was the time you had and you want to gradually begin to come more upright, then let yourself gently move. And when you've come up to seated, just a little pause. So a lot of ground got covered, so feeling the hips, the shoulders, lower back, upper back. Bringing in a gesture if you want, as a seal to your practice. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Aita.